Calling to order the Housing and Human Welfare Committee meeting for Tuesday, June the 19th. I will first ask for a roll call of attendance. Present is myself, Chairwoman Alderwoman Shanika Henson. To my right is,
Alderwoman Tierney, present.
and to my left is,
Alderman Fred Payon.
thank you. The first order of business is approval of the minutes from the last meeting of the committee on April 17, 2018. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 The ayes have it. The second agenda item is a presentation from the Planning and Zoning Department, ID number 189118. I believe Mr. Gutwald is present.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Instead of good morning, as I from yesterday. Pete Gutwald, Director of Planning and Zoning. I'm going to go over what Woman Henson asked me to do, is kind of go over some of the projects, development projects that are going on in the city. I was going to focus. You have a spreadsheet we put up on our website, but it also is now transmitted to this committee as well as Environmental Matters. I was going to focus on the ones that in the right-hand column. Well, let me explain the sheet. What you have is sort of the address, the name of the project, sort of the status of the project, the type of project, then all the numbers that are in our system, so you can track what type of permit is going on, when and where, the number of units or square footage. Then for the purposes of Environmental Matters, they want to know forest conservation status. This spreadsheet goes on and on and on because it also does a lot of APF stuff for us. So we've been tailoring it for whatever the needs are. But then we also have in here the MPDU requirements for each of the developments. That's highlighted in yellow if you're looking at the colored version. The red is simply the update from the previous month. We update this every month. So the highlighted red letter or words or sentences or statuses means that's what's been new since the previous month before. So that won't mean a whole lot to you guys. I'll just start running through some of the projects if that's the will of the committee.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so the first one I have highlighted would be 141 West. That's under construction. All the hoopla going along down there on the inner West Street portion of the city. That is about 24 units, it's got also some retail to it, about 2,800 square feet of retail space on the first floor with 24 residential units. There is one MPDU that is required, but to correct the field, it should be fee in lieu. They have requested a fee in lieu instead of providing the unit. The next one is Annapolis Towns at Neal Farm. That's out off of Old Solomons and Dorsey Road. That direction, those are 50 townhouse units. That is also under construction at this point in time. They were required to provide 6 units, and they did. They also provided a fee in lieu. That's if you've been watching that was the big check we got recently, about $250,000. Moving along on page 2, Central Park, that currently is just under review. That's off of Elliott Road. It sort of backs up to Truxton Park. I guess that's why they call it Central Park. That's 45 townhouse units. There was a number of homes. I think there's about 10 homes that were currently there. They're going to demolish and redo that whole area. It's about 4 or 5 properties that they are putting together. They were required to provide 5 moderately priced dwelling units. I don't know if they've requested a fee in lieu at this point in time or what they're doing. That's why it's blank. They still are under review and revisions were required. Chesapeake Grove at Bemby Beach. That's down off of Bemby Beach Road as you come down to Edgewood, right on the water, right on the Chesapeake Bay. 42 units. There were a number of revisions. We're trying to get them back to the Planning Commission. I think we have. They have just submitted revisions based on city comments, agency comments.
Oh, never mind. I found it.
I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. That one's in the critical area. So that's not. Oh no. I'm sorry. Confusing you with the Environmental Matters. So they had 5 MPDU requirements, but they did opt for the fee in lieu as well.
The new one idea where that is. Help me out here. I was just curious on where that is.
What?
Chesapeake Grove at
Benby Beach, if you go down,
Okay, behind the Giant on the South River.
yeah, but you gotta go back down Edgewood Road, and then it turns into
Okay.
Benby Beach Road, and then
Okay.
curves around.
I
It's,
gotcha.
down at the end of the peninsula. It's right on, you know where, the CCRC is, the nursing home, the Bay Village?
Yes.
Bay Woods?
Bay Woods.
It's right next door to that.
Okay.
Eastport Sail Loft, that's the one on Fourth Street and Chesapeake Avenue, currently under construction as well. They got a number of the units done. They, had one moderately priced dwelling unit required. They opted to do a fee in lieu, and we have received their, check as well. Enclave at Spa, that's right now, that is the old, Radiator, site, American Radiator site off of Spa Road. That's under construction, as you well know, 36 units. They were to provide 4 moderately priced dwelling units, and they also opted for a fee in lieu. Grissom Square off of Tyler and Bay Ridge, they have built, they had one moderately priced dwelling unit that was required, a single-family house. It was the existing single-family house on that property. They renovated it, and it is now occupied. That is, they did provide their moderately priced dwelling unit. The rest of the project is sort of somewhere in limbo, getting their permits and moving forward. They haven't done much else. Moving on to page 3. There's my ongoing joke, Lofts at Eastport Landing. Next. No, I'm just kidding. That's the Eastport Shopping Center. As you know, we just finished the mediation with that. I mean, and that's, their revisions will be forthcoming. But they are, depending upon the total number of units, which I'm not sure, this description obviously will modify and change based on the mediation agreements. I'm not sure what the total number will be, but they do plan on providing the moderately priced dwelling units. Park Place Hotel, sorry. Parkside Preserve, that's the Old Quiet Waters. They are providing their moderately priced dwelling units. We're trying to issue the grading permit at this point in time. We have all the documents, we just don't, we have all the documents in place for the moderately priced dwelling units. They're just waiting for their their final grading permit to be issued. That obviously had a lot of legal stuff. The issue right now with the grading permits is just getting the documents squared away for those 21 units that are going to be preserved in perpetuity.
Can I ask a question about the reduction? It says that it was originally planned for 66 single-family, 86 townhouses, 19 MPDU, and then it was reduced to 44 single-family, 86 townhouses. What happened there?
So what the city agreed to under the previous administration was they came to a settlement for a price of the I think it was 21 or 22 single-family homes, lots that are already recorded back on the back part of the property closest to Quiet Waters Park. So the city actually purchased those for a fee.
Got it. Thank you.
Hi, Pete, I just am concerned about the payment in lieu of it. I'm reading the code and it just, because there's a lot of those, and it says an exceptional, I'm reading 20.30.060, in exceptional circumstances, the Director of Planning and Zoning may permit an applicant to make a contribution to the homeownership assistant trust fund or donate land in lieu of developing MPDU. So how, and they ask for permission, so you ultimately make the decision?
Yeah, I mean, the one
Not
criteria.
to put you on the spot there, I just want to know how it works.
The one
Yeah.
criteria that everybody meets is that they don't meet their densities. There's that one criteria is if they can't meet their density, they can request fee in lieu. And, you rarely meet your density requirements just because of all the other regulations and putting in roads and you name it. And that's not unusual trust me, and for, you know, because what density allows versus what they can achieve,
Yeah.
they never get there. So there's a criteria that says if they can't meet the density, then they can request a fee in lieu instead of providing the unit. So that's what they've opted to do in a lot of different cases. I would tell you, working with Alderman Budge, you know, one of the things that concerned us right up front was there's that 4% of construction cost. Well, that's what they value the construction to be. You know, the idea is to provide, if the fee in lieu should replace or provide another unit someplace else. So we added I wanted to add more, but we got in the value of the grading plan as well as the construction costs, because the construction costs were just the construction of the building, not everything else that it takes to prepare the site for a
Okay, so
development.
that's recent, that this, except a fee of 4% of the total value, that's recent, yeah.
That's how we
Yeah.
determine, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Where was I?
Sorry, yeah.
Parole Place, did I mention that one? Off of Old Solomon's. That should say Old Solomon's, by the way. And where, Walter's Place is, the shopping center, it's all back behind there. That is proposing 90 residential over retail. There's about 30,000 square feet of retail that's being proposed, for a total of 158 units. In my understanding, that's just under review at this point in time. They have indicated that they will provide the moderately priced dwelling units, and that would be somewhere, depending upon which one are rentals and which ones are, because it's 12% of the for sale and 6% of the rentals. It runs anywhere from, I was doing quick math, about 13 units to almost 20 units, depending upon how many for sale versus rentals they decide to do. I don't think they're at that stage. This is sort of right now going through the agency review process. But they have said they want to provide. The other thing we changed, just so you know, prior to all this, is that the tolerances to the setbacks, the height, not the height, but the bulk regulations and all of that was solidified that you don't get that unless you provide the unit. Before, it was interpreted as you could just pay the fee and you still got the tolerance to the bulk regulations and anything in Title 21, and we cleaned that up about a year and a half ago. So now you're starting to see some people that want to provide the units, like the shopping center and Parole Place. So, Primrose Hill, that's off of Milkshake Lane. I'm sure you've heard a lot about that one. That is 3 units were required for that. They are doing the fee in lieu as well. The latest update on Rocky Gorge, that's off of Oxford Landing, Bywater, off of Yall Road. Actually, it will connect to Yall Road, but it abuts Aristide Allen. They wanted access to Aristide Allen, and that got denied. However, they're moving forward with their existing plan, but they're moving towards a workforce housing development, the entire site. The entire number of units they're looking, instead of providing the 6 MPDUs, they're going after our pilot, and they want tax credits. Whoever's purchasing the property is looking to do a whole workforce development product out of that entire development. So that's the latest on that. And I think Thomas Woods, that's a 10-unit subdivision off of Forest Drive. Tough to describe where that one is because it's nestled in a tiny little property. Trying to remember what the road is that they cut back in on. It's before Edgewood, but it's near like Hilltop and Tyler, around there. That project has not really moved forward. They've been asking for extensions. They got all their approvals in place. I don't think they could find a builder for those 10 units. If you're familiar with the project or the site, it's got a right in, right out. You got to go down to Edgewater, turn around, and come back to get into the site. Make a U-turn if you're going down Forest Drive. So it only has a right in and right out. I think they're having a difficult time, and I know they're looking at some different options with that property. But they have just asked for an extension of all of their approvals at this point in time. So I think things are still in limbo with that project. Last but not least is Village Greens. This is the phase in which there are 89 multifamily units. You know, as you know, this has been going on for a while. I don't think they've started on pulling the 89 units yet. I'm not positive on that. There are building permits being pulled on Village Greens, but this section of Village Greens I don't think has moved anywhere. But this section is required to do 11 MPDUs, and they are doing a fee in lieu as well. That's the update. If you have any other questions about any other projects, I'm happy to try and answer your questions.
Are there, we had testimony, public testimony when we had the adequate public facilities with the requirements for, school capacities, from a group that said that they were building some affordable housing. I think the location they tried to give us, I think it placed it off of Forest Drive, kind of
Did I not
Moreland
mention that project?
Parkway, near where the, Monarch School is currently.
Yeah, it's off of West Street. It
West
actually
Street.
accesses off of Bolter and then comes around Capitol. They do have frontage on West Street. It's known as 2010 West Street. I must have walked past. How did I walk
Is
past
that on here?
It should be.
They're from Cleveland, I remember that,
Yeah, that's the workforce housing developer, but, how did I miss that one?
Is that page 4, Town Courts?
Yeah, they changed their name, that's what it is. That's why.
Okay.
It's called Town Court now, right. Yep, sorry. That is 42 units, and that is completely workforce housing, yeah, Town Courts. It used to be 2010 West Street, that was the name I knew it by. Then they changed the name when they got a developer. Sorry about that. Yeah, that project, we just met today, on the progress of that project. They have revisions that are required that they have submitted. I think they just submitted them on Friday. There are a couple of issues with that. Gibraltar is not owned by the city, so that has to be a public road. And they are working through that. Gary Elson from the law department has been working through that, so that is progressing. It was in Mills Parole Elementary School, which was closed. That, from the data I've got from the Board of Education, Mills Parole tentatively will open up, depending upon what happens with the law. But it'll go under, because of the Monarch Academy, will be under 105%. The last and final issue is there is a text amendment that is associated with this project because they want to do just completely residential, and the zoning classification that they are in requires some business associated with the project, and they're not interested, but they could do that. They could provide a piece of that. It's no access, you can't see it from West Drive and all that kind of stuff. So we have proposed in our updates to 2018 to modify that. That was in the Upper West Street sector study anyways, to do that modification to the zoning classification, and there's a number of other amendments that are in that package, but so that's where that is. They have revisions in, it should be moving forward, but yes, they were, if they get caught in they have tax credits that they were granted, and they have lenders that they're trying to move, show that they're progressing with their approval process at this point in time.
Are
So-
the amendments forthcoming that would change that zoning, or does it look like they're moving towards trying to comply with the commercial?
They've done both, but I think they're waiting for the amendments, for the text amendments to move forward. It's just allowing multifamily in the BCE, which it's already allowed, except you have to have some sort of retail component of your project because of, what the desire for West Street. So, we've just removed the requirement for the business retail uses. That's what the text amendment does. It's a minor text amendment.
Thank you. Alderman Payon?
Thank you. What's the next step for the Park Place Hotel?
The Park Place, it's going through agency review right now.
I'm sorry?
Agency review right now. I mean, it just was submitted about a month ago, and it's just been put out to all the other reviewed for completeness, and then sent out to all the different agencies for review. So that's the status of where that is right now. think they haven't even, they need to do, well, we suggested that they do a community input meeting because of 01418. I'm anticipating that will pass. Well, it already has, we're just, cleaning it up. They haven't done that, and I don't think we have the information back on a traffic study either. So we've just initiated that. And I think, because of the school year, we like to have traffic counts done while the school's in session. So if they didn't get the traffic counts done before the end of the school year, we're probably gonna make them do them in September, so.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How does that work? Does the developer pay for the parking study and you provide them with the
Okay.
company? So it's somewhat objective, or?
So the way it works is that they pay for it, but we manage the project.
Okay,
So we put a scope of services together based on the information that they provide us to as what the use is, where the access points are, what is sort of the general layout if they haven't gotten that far, but at least usually when they submit their site plan, we know kind of what it all is and where the access points are, and then we put a scope of services together based on the guidelines, how far out the intersection should go. And then we've changed the process because we've pre-qualified about 5 different traffic engineers. So now we don't have to put a RFP out every time we have one. We can just go to the pre-qualified engineer and say, give me a price for this scope of services. So that's how Sally's been managing that. And I think that's where we are right now with Park Place Hotel.
my colleague.
So they give us a price, and then we tell the developer that this is the price, cut us a check, and as soon as we get the check, then we'll give them a notice to proceed. Not until we get the check, though. 'Cause
My colleague and I will have to coordinate on the public input there, because I know I have Park Place on one side and he has the residential area on the other side. But I guess will there be a public hearing, is it a special?
It's a modification to a plan development. So
Yeah.
yeah, it'll go in front of the planning commission, but they
Okay.
also, well, I have suggested, right now we're under that
Yeah,
restraining order that they don't have to do a community input meeting, but I have encouraged them to do one.
probably a good thing, yeah.
Hmm?
Is it purely market-driven, the number of hotels and units that we have available? Do we do any sort of studies that check the vacancy rates, or is it just
They
however
have.
many you want to build?
They have, and they'll certainly provide it to you. I mean, that's what they said, they know. And remember, some of these are some of the hotels that, that are going on have different, what's the one I'm looking for? Who they're trying to go for. Like the one at Parkway, they're doing an extended stay. They're going after sort of the businessman that's in for a couple of days, and or and a price point. That's what I'm trying to think of. They're going for a specific price point. Different ones are doing different things. So, but yeah, I mean, they're more than willing to share it with me if I wanted to see it. I was like, hey, it's your business.
Got enough paperwork. I don't think it's residential, but what's going in on Forest Drive across from the Safeway and the old Mafe building?
PM,
What is that?
Yeah, I
professional office, mixed
Right.
office.
Oh, okay.
It's a street.
So it's gonna be more than one vendor there?
Well, that PM zoning includes just the front part of Village Greens and the Mafe building, and that's it. This is my ongoing discussion with the council about, we have 31 zoning classifications in 6.5 square miles, or 7 square miles. We are the Baskin Robbins of zoning, not to mention 5 overlays.
Wow. Are there any other questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming in. We appreciate the report and the details and the questions being answered. Thank you.
See you tomorrow night, I think, is there another?
You do know that Rob took your portion off of you?
I do, but I still have Forest Drive, Eastport section tomorrow night.
Wow.
Where's that being held? Where is that?
Right here, it's a public meeting.
Oh, yeah.
To present our draft plan.
Well, what time is yours? When is it? Oh, environmental matters is earlier, yeah, okay.
I did notice that, so I figured he usually emails me, just if you guys.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is legislation before the committee, R-24-18 Equal Protection Task Force. Was referred to the Housing and Human Welfare Committee after passing on first reader and having its public comment. It was adopted on first reader on June 19th for the purpose of establishing a task force. The sponsors on this, it was introduced by Alderwoman Pendel Charles and Alderman Rodriguez, also Alderwoman Tierney, our mayor, Mr. Buckley, myself, and then Alderman Savage as well. It dovetails with the Hispanic task force that we did as well. It's to study the issues pertinent to the African American community. It does comprise a task force of 9 members. They serve without compensation. It requires them to adopt some bylaws, some rules, some procedures, so they do have some formality to their structure, and to have them study the issues that relate to the African American community here in the city of Annapolis. It does give them a 1-year term. It ends the task force on June 30, 2019. I know that I plan to put some things before the task force just to make sure that we are maximizing that. We have a liaison position that's working in the communities. We have some other activities that we are doing, so I want to make sure that we don't miss this opportunity to kind of get some data to drive what we are doing with our other positions, to make sure that we are making the highest and best use of some of the other supports that we are providing to the African American community. Are there any suggested amendments, any discussion on it, any thing that
No
we want to
amendments.
do?
The problem is, we don't even have the task force. This is a renewal of legislation from last year that we passed, and nobody ever named anyone to the task force. I mean, this was supposed to die, if you will, under the sunset provision, I think June the 30th coming up, and it was kind of ridiculous to make it terminated before it ever we ever filled the positions. I was a co-sponsor last year, but somehow I wasn't even asked to co-sponsor it this year. I don't really know why, but I think it's an opportunity, like you said, if nothing else, to gather information. I think it's somewhat duplicative of the Human Relations Commission, but this is a little bit more specific, a little bit more narrow in scope. And is it a great idea? I don't know. Maybe it's not a great idea, but I think it's an okay idea, and let's give it a shot, see what happens.
It's my understanding that the Hispanic task force was introduced last year at the same time or near the same time of the non-discrimination ordinance. The African American task force was only introduced this year. I was approached to be a sponsor on the Hispanic task force, and I did indicate that I would support that, but
There you go. Sorry, I am a co-sponsor.
I would support that only if we did agree to study the African American community as well. I think we were coming off of a year where we had a record number of homicides that disproportionately affected the black community, not only in the victims, but in the perpetrators as well. Our public housing, which Alderwoman Pendel Charles quotes the statistics on that and makes sure that we have the data behind that. It's over 90% African American there. They're going through a time of transition. I think for several reasons, it's a prime time to study what's going on in our African American communities. So I do hear you, Alderman Payon, that the Hispanic one was convened and then no one was ever appointed, and it kind of did not get off the ground and didn't go anywhere. So there is a hesitation there to kind of reauthorize it if it's not going to get off the ground. No one wants to waste anyone's time. But I feel like we do have some different members on the council. Alderwoman Pendel Charles is doing a lot in the communities, a lot of community outreach things these days. So I feel confident that we should be able to staff it, should be able to get some good work out of it. So thank you for your support on the measure. Alderwoman Tierney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I see where there could be some confusion because there was, the city council adopted a resolution over a year ago, actually a year ago today. Isn't that interesting? To study and prepare reports about the issues of foreign-born residents of the city of Annapolis. So it was in line with the anti-discrimination. But this specifically wishes to establish a temporary advisory task force. Is it temporary?
It is, it does
It does say
sunset
temporary, but,
on June 30, 2019.
yeah. So my question is, who is, do we have a city liaison, I guess? I mean, this is, or are they completely autonomous? There is some language here about if, you know, if there's a conflict with the Human Relations Commission. Yeah, but I'm looking as I'm asking the question, I don't see where, you know, is that something that Will Rowell or I don't know, you know, or Tola would
That's a
want-
great idea, to amend it to add in there
Yeah.
that one of the task force members shall be the African American
I
liaison.
think so, yeah, because there's so much going on that you don't want everybody just going in different directions and,
Ms. Green, are we able to incorporate that we amend it to add that Alderman Payon, Alderwoman Tierney's suggestion is that to make sure that this committee is tethered to the city in some way, that we have the African American liaison fill one of the 9 positions on there so that we do have
I
some.
don't think it makes any difference, but
Okay,
I'm okay.
thank you. Are there any other amendments or suggestions? Alderwoman Tierney, were you suggesting to strike the initial whereas that references the foreign-born residents task force?
I think they go hand in hand. I think that background is probably interesting.
Okay.
It's probably important to state. Yeah. And when, I guess we could clarify temporary, does that mean 1 year, or does it say that?
It says that on
I don't wanna-
line, or clause 11,
Okay.
lines 28 through 30 on the second page.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, there you go, right, yep, okay.
And it looks like these are subject to Robert's Rules of Order. I don't know that, let's see. The task force shall meet publicly at least quarterly, and where feasibly shall take testimony from the public. They may adopt rules. So it looks like they would be subject to the Open Meetings Act, so someone will have to take minutes. They will adopt bylaws and rules of procedure. So I guess they would have to appoint, they have to appoint a vice chair and a secretary. So I guess the secretary will take the minutes and be subject to the Maryland Open Meetings Act and Robert's Rules of Order. Okay.
Let's see. Do you know why there are 9 members?
I don't know what the thinking
Seems
was
like
with
a
nine.
lot, to tell you the truth. Why so many?
I know that the subject matters they're studying, there's 7 different subject matters. I don't know if they wanted to try to find specialists in each of the 7 and then have some people that could rotate in or out, some alternates or extras, if you will, so that if some people were more or less consistent, they did still have a full quorum or a full group. But I don't know what the thinking was behind having 9 members. Maybe, I
Well,
don't
it
know.
says no more than 9.
Correct. Maybe they wanted to reach
Yeah.
out to the different wards
Wards,
and maybe,
yeah.
I don't know what that
Yeah.
thinking was. But it said, does it have a fewer provision, Alderwoman?
No,
No more than 9. So it could technically be 1.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's another subject, filling up these boards.
Yeah.
I noticed that last night on whatever we were, that one board that we were talking about.
Oh, yes, the
Yeah.
civil service?
Yeah, or either that or update the
Yeah.
the website page.
I think the fact that this one sunsets and it's a definite beginning and ending will
Mhm.
probably, it might be a little bit easier to staff for people because they know if they commit their time that it's not indefinite. Are there any other suggestions? Any other proposed amendments?
No.
Is there a motion to recommend it favorably to the council as amended?
So moved.
Oh.
Oh, we vote on it first and then the amendment?
No.
Or the
Vote on the
amendment? Is there a motion to adopt the amendment to require that one of the task force members be the African American liaison?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 The ayes have it. Is there then a motion to adopt resolution R 2418 as amendment? Or, pardon me, not to adopt, but to recommend it favorably to the council as amended?
So moved.
I second.
All in favor say aye.
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 The resolution will be recommended favorably. That is our last agenda item. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
I move that we adjourn.
I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
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 What? It's not even midnight. What are we doing?
So did we decide that one was the longest meeting, or did the city doc master plan meeting? Who wants to know? Who cares? Anything after 3 gets blurry, so it doesn't matter.
I left the city doc meeting at 3 because I had to be in court at 8 o'clock with 35 cases.
Was it the amount of testimony on City Doc Master Plan, or was it the alderpersons not agreeing?
Yeah, and it just happened to coincide with an election year, and Josh Cohen was proposing a development, or Dan development, right? So there was this anti-development.